All right, so we're going to start Chapter 11, which is Statistics and Probability. This is the last chapter we're going to do before we begin SOL review. With this chapter, if you saw on your weekly schedules, a lot of what we're doing is projects. There's 3 50-point projects that we're going to do. And pretty much, if you didn't do too well on the quadratics test, this does give you a really great opportunity to bring your grade back up, because these 3 50-point projects are going to be worth 150 points total, and as long as you participate and do the project, there's no reason you shouldn't get a 50 out of 50. So we'll talk about that more as we get to the projects. Today's not going to be a project. Today is just going to be a classwork assignment to make sure we're okay with all the calculator things you're going to learn. So to start with, measures of central tendency. So let's go to page 1 in your notes, and we're going to review some of these measures of central tendency. So to start, you've seen these all before. The mean is the average, okay? And that's when you find the sum of the data and then divide by the total number of data values. So you add up all the numbers and divide by how many numbers there are. This is represented by, we call this X bar, because it's an X with a bar on top. Or you might see it as the Greek letter mu, okay? And it basically looks like a U, but there's a tail out in front. So if you see either one of these, that means the mean. Okay. The median is the middle value. So if the data, basically you order the data from least to greatest and then find the middle value. If there's an even number of data values, just take the 2 middle numbers, because there will be 2 middle numbers, and add them up and divide by 2. The mode is the value that happens the most, so it's the highest frequency. The range is the spread of the data, so you subtract the minimum from the maximum. Okay, so you take max minus min, basically. And just to see what those are, minimum is the lowest value, maximum is the highest value. Okay, pretty self-explanatory. This is where it might be new stuff. Standard deviation is a measure of how spread out the numbers are. The Greek symbol is sigma, and it looks like an O with a tail at the end. Okay, it's the Greek letter sigma. The best way I can describe standard deviation is it lets you know how far most of the data is from the mean. So for example, if I said this class had an average of a 75 on the test, but the standard deviation was 5. That means not everyone got a 75 on the test, but most students were within 5% of the 75. So most students fell either between 70 and 80, either 5% higher or 5% lower than 75. That's kind of what standard deviation tells you. It tells you where most of the data, how far most of the data is from the mean. Variance, you do need to know what this is, but I don't see it come up all that often. It's just taking the standard deviation and squaring it. And then mean absolute deviation is the average distance between each data value and the mean. So it's the distance, it's trying to figure out how far all the numbers are from the mean and trying to figure out what the average distance is. So there's some formulas here. Don't worry about these too much. I just wanted to show these to you because these show up on your formula sheet and people tend to see them and think, what is this? We've never learned this, and they think they need to use these formulas. You really don't need to use them because a lot of what we're doing, the calculator is going to do for you. I just want to show these to you so you see them, and if you understand, if you see them on the SOL, you don't really need to use them. Okay. We're going to do an example here. We're going to find the mean, median, mode, range, min, max, standard deviation, variance, and mean absolute deviation for the following class averages. Okay. And gone are the days when you were doing mean and you'd have to add up all the numbers and then divide, count how many numbers you have and divide. You don't have to do that anymore. Because if you have your calculator, it will do it for you. So make sure you have a graphing calculator in front of you and pull that out. Okay. We're going to open this up a little bit. And what we're going to do in the calculator, okay, turn it on, This is probably what your screen looks like now, just a blank screen, right? We are going to hit, since we're in the statistics unit, I'm going to hit the stat button. See where that is? It's in the second row of the calculator. Hit stat. And then what we're going to do is, before we can calculate anything, we need to edit. So we're going to hit enter on edit. And you should see L1, L2, L3. They should be blank, but if they have numbers, just hit the up arrow so you're on L1, and then hit clear enter. And it should get rid of all the numbers for you. Okay, so you should have a blank screen. Now what we're going to do is in list 1, we're going to type in our numbers. So I'm going to type in 79 and hit enter. Then I'm going to type in 100 and hit enter. And I'm going to do that for all of them. So go ahead and do that. And a good way to check that you got all the numbers, if you count, we have 15 numbers here, and you see how it says L1 16? That's how you know you have 15 numbers, because 16 is a blank one. Okay, so that's how you know you have 15 numbers up here. So that's how you can verify that you didn't skip one or anything like that. So now all your numbers are in. Now we're going to hit stat again. But this time we're going to go over to calc, because we're going to start calculating some of these values. And we're going to hit enter on one variable stats. Now make sure your list, you typed it in list 1, okay? If it doesn't say L1, just hit second 1 to make it say L1. Okay, so hit the second button, then 1. If it does say L1, you don't have to do anything. Leave frequency list blank and just go down to calculate and hit enter. And it gives you a lot of these numbers. It gives you the mean, because remember X bar means mean. It gives you the mean as 78.2. If you go down, it gives you the median right here. That's 82. It does not, if you keep hitting the up and down arrows, it does not give you the mode anywhere. So unfortunately, you're going to have to do that on your own. It also doesn't give you the range. It does give you the minimum. If you see min X, okay, right here, that's 23. And it gives you the max X, which is 100. And then it also gives you the standard deviation. Remember, standard deviation is that Greek letter sigma. That's that Greek letter sigma right there. It's the 5th one down. Okay. The standard deviation is 21.3. Okay, so that's the Greek letter there, sigma x. And they're just saying x just to say that it's the x variable. Don't worry too much about that. And then it doesn't give you variance. It doesn't give you mean absolute deviation. So unfortunately, that's all the calculator will give you up front, but a lot of these are really easy to figure out after that. The mode, okay, if I do the mode, the one that occurs the most often, I see I have 82 occurs twice. I have 100, which occurs twice, and I have 89, which occurs twice. So I have 3 numbers that all occur twice. It is possible to have more than one mode. All 3 of them are the mode. Now, if one of them, like let's say we had 82 was twice, 100 was twice, but 89 was 3 times, then just 89 would be the mode. But since they all occur the most often equally, they all occur twice, then all 3 of them are the modes. The range isn't real hard to find. Just take the maximum minus the minimum. So the range is 77. And variance isn't real hard to find either, because all you have to do for variance is just square the standard deviation. So I'm going to take my standard deviation and square it. And that should give you 453.69. The mean absolute deviation is where you got to get creative. Okay. The mean absolute deviation, let's go back to our calculator here. So let me fix that. Okay. To do mean absolute deviation, we're going to use a lot of the same steps we did before. We're going to hit stat and we're going to do edit. Okay. But this time I'm going to edit list 2. So I got to take a little detour here. Okay. I'm going to hit the over arrow to list 2, and I'm even going to go up so I'm on L2. So the cursor is on L2. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to program in a formula, kind of. Okay. So to do mean absolute deviation, I'm going to hit math. I'm going to go over to number. And abs stands for absolute. Okay. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click enter. And to find the mean absolute deviation, I want to take my numbers from L1. So I'm going to take second 1, and that'll show up as L1. Okay. And I want to figure out how far each of those numbers are from the mean. So I'm going to subtract the mean. Well, the mean was 78.2. And then I hit enter. And it gives me a new set of values. What those numbers mean, those are how far each of these values are from the mean. So like 79 is 0.8 away from the mean. 100 is 21.8 from the mean. 82 is 3.8 from the mean. So all these numbers just tell you how far each of these values are from the mean. Okay. So now that you have everything in list 2, we're going to do what we did before. We're going to go stat. We're going to go over to calc, and we're going to hit enter. But instead of L1, I want L2 because I have everything in list 2 right now. Go down to calculate. And this is mean absolute deviation. So I want to take the mean. Remember, the mean is the X bar. I'm going to take that number, the 15.73333 repeating. And then there's all of your data. Okay, I didn't really do any number crunching, maybe with the range and the variance, but everything else was a matter of programming it into the calculator and having it give me numbers. I do have all the steps written on the board for you, so if you get confused, take a look at the board. But you will get a classwork from the sub. The classwork is not due until May 8th, but I do want you to at least get 1 or 2 done so you can get the hang of these, the calculator buttons you're supposed to use. The sub also has the answer key, so if you want to verify your answers, just check with the sub. And if you have any further questions, you can ask me when I come back on Thursday.